Hello and welcome to another episode of 1MD Live. Uh, we welcome Professor Dr. Shashank Joshi, Padma Shri Professor Dr. Shashank Joshi. He is the immediate past chair of IDF Southeast Asia, past president Indian Obesity Society, and a very well renowned scientist and endocrinologist. Today we are here to talk about World Obesity Day, which was also spoken about by Prime Minister Modi in the National Games recently. And we want to take quick takes from Professor Joshi on Obesity Day as we on the occasion of World Obesity Day today. So, Professor Joshi, without further ado, I'm just going to quickly jump into some questions and take your opinion on those. So, first question is, how do you view obesity, and what is really the root cause of it?
So first of all, we must understand the need for uh, Obesity Day. So World Obesity is a global forum of federation of various obesity societies,
Right.
and obesity is recognized as a disease. So
Mm-hmm.
because obesity is recognized as a disease, they are celebrating this World Obesity Day.
Right.
And on this day, basically all stakeholders, whether they are at a macro level, like governments, public health associations, etc., as well as at individual level, we generate awareness about obesity and then generate causes. Okay, and that is what we need to do. Okay,
Correct.
so
Hmm.
that is the key of obesity.
Hmm.
Now, what is obesity and what is
Hmm.
okay? So, what we understand is obesity means excess fat, and fundamentally, obesity is a global worldwide problem now. Every fourth person, every eighth person on planet Earth has extra fat in their body composition, and it is called obesity. Different geographies have different viewpoints, but we have 8 billion people living on planet Earth, and it is predicted that almost a billion people to 2 billion people have some degree of obesity. It could be mild, moderate, severe, morbid, different types of obesity. And we have seen that we are caught in a dual jeopardy. As we have transitioned from the 20th century to the 21st century, we have seen malnutrition happening, which means undernutrition and famines were seen historically and from centuries. And because we saw historically famines and a lot of undernutrition and malnutrition, we developed, all of us worldwide, developed specialized genes which started storing fat as a fuel, because we know that fat has more fuel, more calories, and whenever there is a crisis, fat gets converted into ready-made fuel or energy bars, and that gets converted for utilization by different cells of the body when they are working, whether it is physical activity, whether it's agrarian activity, whether it's physical work, whether it is brain work. Everybody needs some degree of glucose, and one of the primary sources of energy or glucose is fat. So fat was always stored for situations of crisis. Whether it was stored in the liver, it was stored in the muscle, whether it was stored in fat tissue or adipose tissue, that is what it was. What happened now in this century is we became physically inactive and people became urbanized, and instead of jungles and tribes and villages, we started living in concrete jungles. And because we became suddenly very sedentary and we are eating a lot of excess calories, and we became a perfect recipe for putting on more and more weight. And obesity now is a well recognized disease and is mother of more than 300 plus diseases, right from mental health diseases like depression and anxiety. Obesity has mechanical complications like osteoarthritis, the need for knee replacements, urinary incontinence, and so on and so forth. But beyond mental and mechanical, the primary root from which obesity is mother of all diseases is type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cholesterol issues, and even all forms of cancer. So as I told you, obesity is a mother of all diseases. And fundamentally what has happened is our energy equation has got disturbed. whatever we eat, we store it as a fat, and whatever we exercise, we expend it as calories or expenditure. So this equation of input and output gets disturbed, and we gain weight and we put on weight. So it is the modern lifestyle in which we have become sedentary, we have become affluent, which has led to this global pandemic of obesity.
That's very succinctly put, Dr. Joshi, and thank you for that. I have a follow-up question on this. So we did speak about obesity and also NCDs. I have a question. How do you measure obesity, and what are the Indian guidelines on it?
So that's a good question. So obesity traditionally by insurance companies was measured by BMI, and that is something which we recognize, that we measure it through body mass index. And now globally, the Lancet Commission has come out with a report. We had reported in the Indian Obesity Guidelines way back in 2007, and we also have an Indian Obesity Commission. Dr. Mishra is one of them, I am one of them, many of us are there. We have felt that we are thin fat Indians. So in the Indian context, it is the waist circumference and the waist to height ratio which is as important as just a simple yardstick like BMI. So from a BMI yardstick, we measure obesity as anybody about 25, 27 and 30 as overweight and obesity. But we feel that anybody between 23 and 25 BMI is overweight, and anybody about 25 is obese. Having said that, if you have extra fat in your body composition, or you have fat at an ectopic tissue like the liver, the epicardial adipose tissue, then also it contributes to the sinister complications of obesity. So the obesity definition is undergoing a change. And more than obesity, I like the term adiposopathy, which means that the fat cells are sick and they are diseased. And adipocyte is the cell for fat, and adiposopathy is the term for fat. And therefore, from an Indian context, we are thin fat Indians, which means we have less muscle mass and more fat mass. Traditionally, African Americans or the Caucasian whites, they have more muscle, less fat. But we as Indians, because we have been storing more and more fat, in our body composition, we have more fat and less muscle. So we have a dual jeopardy of a term called sarcopenic obesity. Sarcos means muscle, penia means less muscle. So we have less muscle and more fat in our body. And therefore, the Indian definition of obesity definitely has undergone a change. And therefore, if you want to say that somebody has abdominal obesity, we take a measuring tape. For a man more than 90 centimeters, for a woman more than 80 centimeters, it will contribute to abdominal obesity. Or if the BMI is more than 23, or if there are more than one comorbidities like hypertension, diabetes, liver disease of fat, or a heart disease, then it will contribute to obesity. So obviously, from an Indian context, we are undergoing a change, and we are investigating newer metrics like waist to height ratio. Also, it's important to remember how strong is your muscle mass. If you do a simple hand grip test, you can easily measure your muscle strength, because muscle mass and muscle strength measure sarcopenia. So as you put on weight and fat mass, you also have less muscle mass, and this equation of fat to muscle has led to an explosion of diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure, cancer in the modern Indian population, urban and rural both.
That's wonderfully said, Dr. Joshi. I have a question in terms of the management now. Now that you mentioned about what obesity is, I would like to move to how do we actually manage obesity, because there is no sort of exact definition that people are aware of, and there is too many, currently gurus that are giving knowledge regarding what should be obesity management like. So I would like to get your authentic take on how do you actually manage obesity.
So obesity management needs an evaluation. and we need to evaluate the patient under medical supervision, and we need to measure the anthropometrics, measure the body fat composition. We can use it by measurements. If we are very sophisticated and people have access, we can do a body composition analysis to actually measure the body fat through a DEXA scan. Then we need to rule out underlying causes of obesity. So we do metabolic profiles like glucose test, cholesterol test. We do cancer markers. We look at liver fat. We also do tests which are metabolic and endocrinological tests, because there are many diseases which cause secondary obesity, like for example thyroid or excess cortisol and so on and so forth. So that has to be measured. But all this has to be done under clinical supervision. And many times there is insulin resistance associated with obesity, in which there is acanthosis nigricans, etc. And the approach to obesity is, first we need to counsel and engage the person living with obesity that they should not feel ever discriminated or stigmatized. And we should make them in shared decision making an active participant and give them the entire approach. We have lifestyle, we have excellent medications, and we have surgical options. Let us not discuss medications and surgical options, but lifestyle. Lifestyle is about diet, it is about exercise, it is about de addiction from various addictions a person may have, and finally, it is about health and happiness and sleep. So, in the lifestyle component, the first component is diet. We clearly need to lose weight, we need to eat less, we need to reduce the caloric content, and we must congratulate our Honorable Prime Minister in Man Ki Baat as well as in our national games. He said that it is important that we eat less fat, less carbs, and we stay fit, because we need to do physical activity and build muscle. We need to do resistant exercises. So we need to eat less, we need to eat less carbs, less fat, and more protein. At the same time, we need to do physical activity. It could be as simple as 6 to 8,000 steps a day. It could be a yoga like a Surya Namaskar or a Kapalbhati. It could be muscle strengthening exercises. It could be aerobic exercises or play sports like swimming or cycling or so on and so forth. So we need to encourage physical activity. We need to encourage right habits for eating. So eat slowly, eat on time, eat less, eat the right food. Our association FSSA has said eat right. Try to reduce the carb and fat. Cook in less oil. Have ensure that the food which is cooked is healthy, and be mindful on eating. Don't eat very fast. Beyond the diet and exercise, de-addict yourself from alcohol, from smoking, from tobacco, from various drugs, and also do a digital detox for 1 hour every day, because we are cluttered with a lot of digital overload, and we need to declutter that digital overload and need to do a digital detox. We need to sleep for at least 7 hours. Don't sleep less than 5 hours. Don't sleep more than 10 hours. And from an obesity standpoint, particularly if you are snoring, get a sleep study done. Identify sleep apnea, because if there is sleep apnea, your sympathetic activity goes up, and that will lead to insulin resistance, hypertension, heart disease, and diabetes. So then you need under medical supervision to also do some degree of CPAP or some other measure to correct your sleep apnea. So from a lifestyle perspective, we need to be mindful on eating. We need to eat less, eat slowly, eat on time. Sometimes we replace a meal. We replace a meal by a meal replacement. Then, of course, we need to do physical activity. It could be 6,000, 8,000 steps, some yoga sanas like Surya Namaskar or Kapalbhati. It could be strength strengthening exercises like going to a gymnasium and putting on some muscle. It could be engaging into sports activities like playing badminton, tennis, or trying to do swimming or cycling. And it could be even agrarian activities. And beyond physical activity, beyond promotion of correct dietary practices, we need to ensure that we de-addict ourselves from tobacco, smoking, as well as digital detox. And we need to smile and be happy. And we need to ensure that we sleep right, sleep well, and eliminate sleep apnea. That's actually the mantra for a holistic approach to obesity management.
That is wonderful. That was a really nice, holistic way of looking at obesity, Dr. Joshi, and thank you so much for that breakdown. I actually have one question regarding what are the new developments in obesity in terms of drugs? We are hearing a lot about obesity drugs across the West and even now in India. And do we have, like how safe are they? What is your take on that?
So I think this is a great question. Obesity treatments, particularly medical treatments, have been crowded with controversy and have been clouded with a lot of misunderstandings and myths. Because the old drugs all operated on the appetite mechanism. They switched off the appetite, switched off the craving. And the initial drugs which came on, like fenfluramine or phentermines, and various other drugs which came in, sibutramines, the locarcerines, they all unfortunately had to be withdrawn because of adverse effects. And in the South America, there was a salivary secretion from a South American lizard, which created a peptide which is made in our intestine called incretins, the GLP-1 and the GIP-1, the K and the L cells of the intestine made them. We know beta cells make insulin, alpha cells make glucagon, and a peptide or a protein or a amino acid protein byproduct called GLP-1 is made by our intestine. These peptides in the intestine not only control glucose or diabetes, but they go in the brain and work on the hypothalamus to switch off the appetite and burn the fat. And these agents are available orally and injectably both. These are called GLP-1 agents, single agents, GLP-GIP-1 agents, double agents, and now there are triple agents also available, mainly manipulating or mimicking the actions of GLP-1, GIP, and the glucagon receptors. And these pharmaceutical and chemical scientists made discoveries. They switch off appetite and cause compelling weight loss. For a drug to cause weight loss, it should be more than 5%. But the GLP-1 agent, for example, what's available in India as oral semaglutide, can cause weight loss from 8 to 12%. You have a dual agent which is going to come in, which is called as tirzepatide, which will cause weight loss up to the 12, 14, 15, 18%. And then we are going to get a triple agent called the retatrutide, which will cause weight loss much more than that. And many such agents are getting available. These agents will cause some nausea and vomiting. They must be given under medical supervision. You have to slosh very slowly and go very gradually. They can occasionally impact the pancreas and cause pancreatitis. You need to give them under medical supervision. You need to avoid alcohol or conditions which make you predisposed to pancreatitis. But beyond that, you need medical supervision for these drugs. They should not be taken off label, and they are very popular. They are out of stock, and many of these agents have been available for some time now. So they have gone through a pharmacovigilance portal. Of course, if a drug will work, it will have effects and side effects. They are not only useful for reducing weight and burning fat or reducing the fat, but also are useful for diabetes. They are useful for MASH or metabolically associated fatty liver disease. They are useful for sleep apnea and many other conditions, including neurodegenerative disorders. So it is as Charles Dickens said, we are in best of times but worst of times. So these drugs are excellent molecules which are available. The current challenge is they are not accessible or affordable for the large mass of population, and therefore lifestyle remains supreme. Secondly, when we rapidly lose weight, we also lose some muscle mass. So you need to supplement it with protein. And before we give these drugs, medical supervision is very important. Mental health screening is very important. And ensuring that you don't have underlying any cancer history is very important. So giving them under medical supervision is very important. And therefore, these drugs are here to stay. And these drugs are actually competing with bariatric surgeons. Because in severe cases, in morbid obesities, even today, bariatric surgery is an excellent option. Because in bariatric surgery, we are able to get drastic weight loss in people who have BMIs about 35, 40, 45, 50. And we have long-term outcome results from bariatric surgery. If done under skilled supervision and skilled hands, bariatric surgery is still there. Having said that, even endoscopic procedures are being discovered. So as I told you that these drugs are available, these drugs need medical supervision, these drugs are expensive, so affordability and access is still a rate limiting step and should be given under strict surveillance of an endocrinologist or a qualified physician who knows how to handle these drugs better. And occasionally, a morbid obese case may need even a surgical intervention or an endoscopic intervention. So, as I said, obesity is a manageable disease, but we need a lot of counseling, a lot of positive happiness, and beyond that, we also need to ensure that lifestyle is integrated. We also have novel technologies. For example, we have this whole body digital twin technology. We are trying to reverse obesity through that. So there are many other things which are there in the domain, but these are in experimental domain. But the drugs which have come in are now here to stay. They are approved by FDAs, both US and Europe, and even the Indian Drug Controller General has given the nod for the oral semaglutide which is available. And soon, by the end of this year, we will have injectable uh, semaglutide as well as tirzepatide available to the Indian population. So I think it is a good option which will be available for people living with obesity, and it is particularly useful for those who have associated comorbidities like heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, heart failure, fatty liver disease. It will be very, very useful, obstructive sleep apnea. So I think this is a great question. And as I said, these are good options, and we will be getting more and more of these options as we pass time. And when they become generic, then obviously more and more people will be able to access it because it will become more affordable. But they will still need medical supervision and they will still need pharmacovigilance.
That's wonderfully explained, Dr. Joshi. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today. And on World Obesity Day, we have clarified all of the doubts that are there. In case of any other doubts, please let us know, and we would love to respond to you. Dr. Joshi, thank you so much for your time, and have a good night.